everybody. This is Carmen with Carmen's Legacy Productions and Carmen Speaks. So I am Regional Director for the Public Speakers Association, and we meet in Georgetown and Round Rock the fourth Tuesday of every month from 11:30 to 1. And we'll have a Zoom meeting on the second Monday of every month at 6 o'clock Central Time. So those of you that are kind of far away, you can get in on the Zoom call. And it's a lot of fun. And what we do is we talk about speaking. And, you know, it's really important for people, whether we're in business for ourselves or with someone else, we need to be able to speak, whether it's one-on-one or in a group, and be comfortable with that. And public speaking is one of the biggest, scariest things for people. And so I'm looking to help to make that easier. And then with the support of the Public Speakers Association, we do great stuff. So those are our meetings. And what I want to do is do these little tips and tricks videos because, and I'm going to go on some of the questions that come up in the groups and that I've heard. And I want to tell you a little story here. So I was in my mid-20s, maybe 28. My son was a baby. That's how long ago it was. He's 32 now. And the doctor that I worked with, I was an RN, the doctor that I worked with said, you know, that research we've been working on had to do with sudden infant death and esophageal reflux, a little bit controversial. He said, there's a big conference in Alaska and I want you to go and present the research and talk about it to this room full of pediatric surgeons. And I can pretty much remember the sensation that I had, which was like, you want me to present? And I had never spoken in public before. And so his solution was, well, draw up some slides, come over to my house and present it to my wife and myself, and I'll give you some critiques, which was probably more scary than anything. And wow, how I yearned for a glass of wine right about then. And so we went to his house and he sat back because it was like 30-minute presentation and he sat back. He said, you know what? That was like the most boring thing I've ever heard. And this is my research and I love it. I'm like, I'm going to call that a fail. And that was terrible. And so we worked on it and tweaked it. And eventually then I went and I did the talk. And not to say that my knees were literally shaking behind the podium as I'm giving this talk. Because all the fears were popping into my head. Is this room full of doctors going to give me a hard time about the research? And I got to tell you, I knew this stuff inside and out because I did all the data and I actually worked with the parents. And I had a big part in the research and I did know it. And yet I was so afraid thinking I don't, and felt so little. But when I was done, it felt wonderful. It was like a roller coaster, really. You know, when you go on a roller coaster and you scream and you're just like begging, please let me off of this roller coaster. And when it's all done, it's like, hey, I think I could do that again. I mastered it, right? And that's how I felt after this talk, and had continued to do public speaking after that. And I'm sure I remained very boring for a very long time. And I just continued to tweak my game and kind of up the game every time and make it a little bit more interesting. And so, you know, I'm telling the story for two reasons. So one, to let you know we all start somewhere, and how I wish I would have had a group to kind of nurture me and help me along when I first started, and because I did not. And number two, and this is a little sneaky of me, that it's the power of stories. And so by telling a story and telling a story of my first speaking, which I doubt that you'll forget really soon, is that it gets the point across without really lecturing or going through bullet points or anything like that. It's a matter of telling the story to get the point across. And so that's the number two reason I wanted to share the story with you. So think about what you want to present and what story will go along with it. Okay, so I'm trying to think here. I just, oh, I can tell you one. So, you know, when it comes to taking headshots, the biggest thing I hear for people is, I'm so afraid of the camera. I'm so afraid of the camera. And I thought, why? It's just a camera. And so I thought, what is it that makes it so scary for people? And so I started to talk to people, and they said, well, I'm used to selfies and I can see myself in the selfies, but with you with a camera pointing at me, I have no control over what you're going to snap. So I thought, well, okay, what needs to happen first? And what needs to happen first is trust. And in that, then I started talking about my first experiences when I remember having photos done the first time, as well as most recently I had photos taken, and what it felt like to be vulnerable. And when I share that story of vulnerability and say, okay, I get this, I did it too. And so I've got a few tips for you to help make it easier, because it's understandable that this is vulnerable. Guess what? People don't feel so nervous anymore. Stories have huge power. So when you're thinking about what you want to present, even if it's as simple as I'm going to take some pictures and I tell a short story to put people's minds at rest, that's a story for that particular presentation. That was one-on-one. And when you do that for this, so I know many of you watching are in the elder care and do a lot of elder care work. So maybe draw on your experiences with families and how it felt for you, and that you could relate to that. And then ask, what can I do to make this easier for you? You'd be amazed. As soon as you talk about fear, it's way less once you take the elephant out of the room. So have some fun with this, tell some stories, think about a point you want to get across, and go for it. In the meantime, remember, we meet the Public Speakers Association, our regional group for Georgetown and Round Rock, meets the last Tuesday of the month from 11:30 to 1 over lunch. And we're a great low stress way of getting comfortable speaking. And then there's a Zoom meeting at 6 o'clock Central Time, the second Monday of the month. That is going to be fun too. We've got a powerful group of people, and we're just growing, which is exciting. So we're doing wonderful things. In the meantime, take care. I'll talk to you soon.